Thanks, everyone. And thanks, everyone, for joining here. My talk is around the innovation framework that we have at Discover Financial. At the financial organization, you'll see that I have my disclaimer at the bottom. We have that much more formal. We have to be around here, but we also ensure that we are innovating. So a little bit about I'll go through a little bit outline here. Sophia had a great presentation. And it's interesting because she's putting those ideas to work, and what we're going to do is try to develop those ideas, and that's what we try to do at Discover in those initial phases. So we'll do about me a little bit on innovation generally, and at Discover. This is a slide. It used to be activity, but we won't be doing that. But I will walk through a few pieces here, how we go about doing it, and examples of how we do that, and we'll do Q&A at the end. So I'm Robert. I am currently an expert innovation design facilitator for Discover. That's a very long title that I almost always have to look up because I never remember it. I've been a UX strategist for well over a decade, worked in various industries, was a nonprofit exec back in a former life, and I'm from New York originally with a layover in Philly before landing here in Los Angeles. So innovation, it's like the word unprecedented. When we live in this world and people just say it over and over again, everything's unprecedented. Innovation also means nothing, and it means everything. So what is innovation? I like to say you can say innovate, and you want to hear how many times do you hear innovate or innovation? Take a shot. You can make it into that drinking game. But let's dig into it. Is innovation around kind of technology? Is it around new AI systems or technology or softwares you use? No, it's in a world of AI where everyone wants to use this latest technology, and that's great, but innovation isn't driven by technology or the software you use. It's driven by discipline, and it's hard. That's why everyone wants to say they do it and say they want to be innovative, and everyone wants to be innovative, but sometimes the work kind of ends up being that boulder that you're just trying to move through, and it's hard to kind of change things, and it's the same in my work, and that's why we're always trying to kind of drive this through difficult challenges and sometimes times. So what does it look like? What does innovation at Discover look like? So my background in UX, but also the facilitator of our design thinking, is that we do leverage design thinking, and that's one of the pieces that is kind of core to what we do. We design thinking, again, it's kind of been overused in a sense, and it's had its day to some level of being kind of cachet, but what we in the end, it's all about problem solving. So how do you approach it? It's design thinking. There's business strategy approaches, but that's core to any kind of innovation work that you end up doing. So at Discover, we leverage design thinking, and we develop things. We have recipes, and we develop workshop recipes where we might use various techniques. So some of them can be things that are more design thinking driven, like something like a creative matrix. But then there's kind of use cases or user story mapping, things that are used around product and just around prioritization and product strategy. And so it's not just design thinking, but it's developing those workshops. And we try to do is we customize it for our internal teams, or we might have predefined workshops. So it could be, a predefined workshop where we try to focus on kind of aligning and defining around that. So making sure people are on the same page and are solving the right problem. Building empathy with users. So how do we approach that? Done talks around this and internally and externally around kind of like how we use customer empathy and a lot of things that we know as a core to us in being in UX and being in product. But again, getting people together and kind of getting that focus on the users within a workshop environment and developing that out is huge. Ideation. So Sophia mentioned visual. We try to do that in our work, but kind of getting everything in a Miro board. We use Miro as our whiteboard because a lot of our workshops are done online. Sometimes they do in person, but like this one, but a lot of them are done online. So we, do those, think through those next possibilities. Sometimes, thinking about the prototype, starting there and kind of like going from there and building from there and getting back to that empathy phase. And then, planning for the worst case scenario. So we've approached a pre-mortem method, and that we have where it's just essentially just we talk about what is successful like, but what does failure look like? What if the worst case scenario did happen? How determining that out, what that might look like, how that and how we would respond, and if it's recoverable. It's one of the pieces there. So different types of approaches, either some of the predefined ones, but we also customize for our users, which are our internal teams. So our innovation framework is, so we have a few different approaches. So we do our work around supporting teams, and we can do workshops around design thinking and problem identification. And then people also will come to us with ideas, things that they want to develop. So my team, we're Discover Research and Development, and we designed this innovation methodology to take an early stage idea and develop it. Now, where that can end depends on the idea. Some concepts may not be sponsored internally and may kind of fall to the wayside, but that's kind of how we kind of approach it initially with that idea. So the first step is to create and submit that innovation idea, and then we help teams and individuals develop a concept proposal, which represents an executive brief that conveys the key descriptive elements of an idea. Concept proposals are used to find that sponsorship. We'll work then to develop a proof of concept. After getting that sponsorship, we'll be able to start working to produce that, and create it during these define and developing stage. So that proof of concept could be various things. It could be an actual built out or MVP or prototype. It could be various kind of various concepts, and I'll give an example in a moment. And then we end up with, at the end, a project dossier, which serves as a blueprint for the product teams to implement innovation projects at scale. So what this could end up being, it can end up going to kind of that, that Jira, we do use Jira, life cycle of, an idea, and creating that initiative, and putting it, and actually making it as part of either a new product or new process. It could end up being something that's built out, that ends up being open source. It could also be something that's patentable, which I worked on a project I'll talk a little bit about, which was all those things. And we have this kind of BAU we talk about internally, business as usual. What we're trying to do is not work that way. We're trying to kind of change it up a little bit, approach things in a different way, and rethink kind of our structured and standard approaches that we've done in the past. So, but we still have a structured approach. It's just different than what people have done in the past. So, what does that innovation look like in action? So, a project that I worked on was these offerings around which this well, it's a SaaS product which required sending image data to a remote service to introduce both security and which introduced both security and availability risks, which are personal identifiable information (PII). So the challenge there is the HMW is how might we build technology in-house to review this data and minimize the risk inherent with vendors and the inefficiency of manual review. Because what was happening, these checks sometimes would be sent like analog style. They would be skewed kind of account numbers and checking account numbers, and it would be difficult and to read without requiring someone manually to kind of go through it. So stepping back a bit, optical character recognition is we use this technology, and we decided to use it. Why? Because OCR, or optical character recognition for short, is critically important to our business and customers. And OCR is the process of extracting text from images. So when done well, it improves customer service, customer experience, reduces costs, and prevents errors and resulting losses. So what did it actually look like? Is like a check like this, where you would kind of see where an account number would be, routing number would be skewed, and a signature would sometimes cross over. And so we had to create a technology that allowed to do this, allowed to actually review these checks and actually be able to kind of break up these numbers to chunk them so that they were readable. And this was not readable without going through a manual process until we worked on this technology. So the questions that kind of came up around this was, what were we responding to? And how do we minimize the manual work that is error prone without relying on a vendor, which can affect business continuity? Being a bank and in finance, risk and compliance is paramount. So having vendors work on these problems, you know, we obviously have vendors that support us. However, at times, these are things that we want to try to keep in house. How do we do that, and continue on and not affect the business? Create and kind of manage that technology. So what, can we do this? Could we create it in house? This is, many times when we approach challenges and an innovation method is around build versus buy. So obviously there's always an option to buy it from a vendor, but what can we do? What we're trying to do in this process, in this example, and just in general, is that, can we do this internally? Can we build this internally? Is it make sense? Is it feasible? Is it viable? And is it desirable? And could this be reusable internally and beyond? So anything that we try to build and support the building process is a technology that we try to think about, where else can we apply it. And this was something that we felt we could be applied in various use cases across our organization. So what did that look like? What did the results look like? Scanning accuracy was 97% in only 5 months. This was at like this. The numbers were pretty low. Like we were having probably maybe 70% or 60% accuracy during the manual process. So it really increased greatly. We reduced that risk and cost. We brought it internally. It's an in-house service now, and it's something that we did to improve that accuracy. And now we can use it for other pieces, which led to kind of avoiding those vendor costs and that removing that vendor from what would have been something that could create some risk within and address that business continuity piece. And there are 2 patents now filing for patent pending patents for this work. And we've also opened this up to other financial organizations around open source. So that's starting up as well. So these pieces came together, and we created this product that really worked for us internally, but also it's something that open source to across our industry. So well, we normally were going to be do this in person, and I was going to run an activity here, but we can't do that here. So we're just going to talk a little bit about maybe some ideas, and so we'll just have you, and you're there. Just think about an idea. Usually, what I would do is, like I said, remotely, I'd run this in Miro and facilitate it. We were physically there. I would have had you guys maybe get some post-its going and get you out of your seats. So feel free to stand up if you want to and stretch your legs. But we'll talk a little bit kind of what are the methods we use. So the SciPap is what we kind of structure when an idea comes through, and kind of how we actually ensure that when we kind of have thought through what the pieces around the idea are. So it's situation, complication, or challenge, implication, position, action, and benefit. So you start by clearly writing that problem. What is that situation? So the complications, what's impacting the situation, as well as implication of failing to act on the problem. Talk a little about pre-mortem. This is kind of getting a little bit into that piece. You want to position the problem. What is that? A proposed approach to solving that problem at stake. You start getting those necessary steps that need to be taken, and then you clearly state that the benefit and expected results of implementing your proposed solution. So there's a little bit of a hypothesis approach, experiment design here, where you're kind of like, okay, this is what you're testing out, this hypothesis, and then these are the benefits that you expect from that solution. So that's kind of the steps of what we generally use to start building out ideas. So what does that kind of look like? This one's a example of a potty training a dog. I probably should use this for kids right now, because I have toddlers, and this is a fun time in that regard. So what's that problem? Our dog is potty trained, doesn't want to go outside to use the bathroom. Okay, that's a situation. Got it. What's their complication? You can't trust her alone in your house, and winter's coming, and it'll be cold outside. Well, it's like so this is causing us not to trust her. We can't go anywhere. Making it's weather might make it harder to go outside. Implication, stuff gets ruined. Odor, Can't get like we can't even get a dog sitter. Don't get our potty trained. Our floor will keep getting ruined. And then what's the position? We can hire a dog trainer to come and do that work. And then that we propose that we hire a dog trainer. Action, understanding our budget, how much you can afford, and research trainers and dog training afterwards. And to understand that budget, we need to understand who's available, and then the benefits of saving money on carpet cleaners, and really the peace of mind piece. So obviously this is a funny kind of example, but as you can see, you kind of build out that idea and you kind of start thinking about like, okay, what is that? What is the action that we can take? And this is why, like, even like whether it's in work or personal, it's a way to kind of start thinking through approaches. Beyond this iPad, we use other resources and methods. We actually have published internally over 80 or 85 or so, and we continue to grow them. But some of these are kind of like more kind of cleaner, and can be done in like very brief activities. So like something like a wow now how, which is what's new and exciting, ideas that could be created now, what elements or variations can be accomplished today, and how can we implement our idea ASAP. So there's an aspect of like, you know, here's a wow, the aspect of what can actually be done now. And I think reference to the presentation again, it's kind of like that good piece. So like, well, we need to ship like now. So that's where we're kind of looking at and seeing what can be done there, and then what can be implemented. So this is a really quick activity you can do a lot of times with product teams and get some good ideas out and kind of move it forward. And then if you want to get a little deeper, value proposition design, I really like it. Those who've maybe used other strategies or business methods, is will recognize this. But this focuses on the jobs to be done, and uses pain, frustrations, gains, and motivators to drive the solution offering. So this is when you get in depth. I also like this in regards to when you're building out your personas. You kind of link this a little bit with an empathy map. And if you are building out an actual idea, this can be coupled very well with a lean canvas for an initial business plan. And there's a lean canvas, and there's empathy mapping. And then there's a scoping canvas. So this is actually, now we're talking about getting desirability, feasibility, viability. That's a piece there. So what claims, beliefs, or open questions need to be resolved. So, this is now, yeah, you can make something, you can create something, but is it desirable, feasible, or viable? Then what is that? What are the deliverables, and what is that exit criteria? Assumptions that are being made, and then dependencies, stakeholders. So walking through these steps, it has you go deeper around your user needs, and it goes a bit deeper. Then maybe you take your lean canvas and then you kind of build on this. So all of these methods are kind of like standalone approaches and resources that you can kind of use, and also those that you can couple and work together. So high level takeaways: innovation is all about starting with an idea, not a technology. I think many of us know that inherently, but sometimes we go down kind of that rabbit hole of like, oh my god, this new technology, oh crap, what did OpenAI do today? Let's drive with that. And then internal methodology is applicable to any ideation process. There's nothing here that we try to develop something that based on a lot of different kind of resources and practices that are out there, but it's nothing that can't be obviously applied to any of your work, and to some degree your life. Leveraging design thinking and all the UX tools that you already know. So and honestly, any kind of product strategy tools, business strategy tools, those are pieces that all should be incorporated in kind of your thinking around this. And not all ideas lead to innovation, but all ideas can be tested. So I think that's one of the pieces around it, where it's just like not everything is like innovative, but you do have an idea. It could be something that could just be feature change or change requests, or something that can be a better experience for your customers or your users, but not necessarily like a game changer in innovation. And that's okay, because that's the majority of our work. But it's just more kind of changing the way you potentially think or approach the work. And that's all I have. There's Q&A. I know we'll talk with Marne. And if anyone has their phones out, I'll put that up there if you want to connect with me. But you can also find me on LinkedIn. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. That was really great. Thank you for sharing that. We do have quite a few questions here. We'll try to get through some of them. Um, Everybody wants all the resources you shared, so if there's a way to go more broadly.
Let's figure something out afterwards, and we can do that.
Okay, okay, sounds good. Yeah, I think the audience is interested in getting some of those templates so they can use in their work. So yeah, if there's a way to do that, that'll be great. One question from the audience is, what is the hardest part of that funnel to get buy-in? I think they're talking about that reverse pyramid image you showed.
Oh, what's the hardest part? Well, first off, the hardest part is, I think, the majority of organizations that you're going to work in your career are not necessarily innovative organizations, and I think everyone wants this. That's why I make the joke about innovation, because everyone's like, "Oh, I'm innovating," like, okay. But part of it is just kind of like you're always pushing against kind of like what we talk about BAU or status quo within organizations. And because we all have work that has to be done. Like there is like backlog items that have to be knocked out, like no matter what your role is. I think that's one of the challenges of like, how do we just kind of step back? I mean, I'm like scheduling a workshop, couple different workshops right now with internal teams. And I'm like, well, this will be a 2-hour workshop. We can split it into 1 hour. Like, let's just split it into 1 hour, because no way we can get 2 hours together with people. And the reality is like, but taking that step to kind of like start thinking in a different way or approaching the work in a different way in itself sometimes is a lot. So I think it's kind of like when we talk about our workshops, we talk about the beginner's mind. Come in with the beginner's mind, and just be ready to kind of absorb and be involved. And I think, but again, with organizations, like you also have to be, if you're the person who's kind of trying to drive the innovation, you also have to be empathetic around the fact that we talk about being empathetic to user. We have to be empathetic to our colleagues that we're trying to innovate with, and saying like, we recognize the work that has to be done, that you have to knock out, and we're here to support that. And our team kind of works as kind of that extension of a team, almost like internal management consultants to kind of support it. I don't know if that answered that question. Hopefully it did.
That's great. We had another question. This was something I was also interested in, which is interesting part of your sort of R&D role, but the idea of building over buying, and how do you sort of think through that? So the question exactly is, how do you choose build over buy? Or it says, do you choose build over buy where you can?
Well, and so I think, so we have different kind of innovation groups within Discover, and one kind of works on those that want to buy something. So for example, if you want to add, like, every product now has like a new AI component or Gen AI component, right? So like that is kind of like, oh, well, you're buying that, you want to add that, you're going to go through this process. That's not necessarily innovation. And that's why I talked about technology and things like that. Even that team is under an innovation umbrella, and even they're like, it's not really innovation. But again, the reason our team exists is like when you have an early stage idea and you're trying to truly understand if it makes sense to build versus buy, and that's why. So we'll build out those early proof of concept to see if it's something that's feasible based on what we're looking at. But there's a lot of vendors out there, and a lot of times people just want to buy something, and I think that's really what it is. And we welcome that. Please go to that other team and have them help you buy that. But if you really want to think through a way to potentially build something internally, without having a vendor, and a lot of times risk and compliance comes to play, and that's sometimes for us where people come to us like, we have to do this internally because it's going to be a problem if it goes externally. If we rely on a vendor, or we've had a vendor and it's gone to hell because information has been released. Wait, that didn't really happen. Sorry, might be recorded here. Or something might have happened that shouldn't have happened, and now we have to respond. So that's why we try to kind of get people, in those early stage ideas, who really are interested in potentially building something. That's, again, like one thing I'm just scheduling right now, is people who are actually interested in redesigning and building something that's currently an external application.
Awesome. Just a quick follow-up to that. Are you on the patent for this awesome product you worked on?
I am. So what's good is that what's good about working in this team is that I got to be on 2 different patents because I'm around a lot of smarter people. So I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful for my team in that regard. So and we, one that's around this particular optical character recognition image processing one, another one around accessibility, which was dyslexia one.
It's got to be a life goal. Yeah, that's great. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, Discover, our team is really kind of focused on patents. We actually just did 2 weeks of like helping people develop patents, like sessions internally, and we're getting a bunch of disclosures, as they say, and where our legal team really works through and kind of supports and helps out.
That's amazing. Let's do one more question and then wrap up. I know you kind of touched on this earlier about, everyone has their regular thing that they have to do. So can you share some, best practices or tips? Like, how do you get partners and teams to like pause what they're doing, or the BAU that you described, right? And to really try to think and innovate. I'm sure you have some hurdles with that. So how do you convince them to carve out time to actually do this work?
Our biggest hurdle, I think it's, so we really, when I came to Discover 2 years ago, and I felt like I become kind of like the almost like account manager salesperson within internally to try to sell our services. I feel like I'm one of those management consulting companies. I'm the person who's the account person trying to get people to know who we are. So I think part of it is what we try to do is we try to get out there and just kind of connect and network, just like everyone networks internally and externally and everything. We do it internally to try to get people to understand what we do. We create these methods and put it out there for self-service. They're out there. They can go on our, one of our sites and just pull it down, download a template from Miro and go to town. We're here I work with teams on coaching. They want to do self-service. I'll help coach them. It's just a lot of just, getting out there. And it's not the most fun answer because, like I said, I think the default is we have work, we have a job description, we have things that need to be completed. It's just there are certain people that, and we've been in situations where we're like, no, we're good, we'll do that. I'm like, okay. And there's certain that really just want the help, want the support, want to approach things differently. And in the end, it's going to be, depending on the organization you work in, it's largely going to be in the minority around us. The people who are really willing to kind of like rethink the way they work. And I think when you want to kind of like, got to reach out to those designers, those product people, the strategists around the organization, those marketing people, like all the people that are UX, DX, like that pie chart are the people in your organization you want to reach out to, because those are the individuals and the people. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir a lot of times. The people on this call are the people trying to rethink the way we work, trying to do things a little differently so we can kind of, work better. And again, there's some organizations that might slot out, here's your free time to kind of structure that work. Maybe that exists in your organization. Maybe use that to kind of like see if you can partner and really kind of reach across the aisle. I feel like that's not the right term, or maybe it's too much of a term that I shouldn't say right now, but reach across like teams that aren't within just your team and not within just your discipline.
That's great. Yeah. I think it's awesome. And it's fun when you find a partner who really does want to work with you, because then you get to do great things.
It's so fun. I love doing this when we get, like I said, I'm so excited about scheduling some meetings that I just, was emailing back and forth, and it's just exciting because when people are like of the same kind of mindset around kind of how do we do this, but do it better. And so that's what we try to do. And honestly, like working in a place where like everyone knows we're going through a merger. So a lot of that stuff, kind of halts innovation, like, oh, wow, we have to make sure we're just, doing those things, doing things we have to do. And those are the things we're pushing against. And every organization has it. We're always pushing against the work that needs to be done. But how do you do this work better is the question. And that's why I said, how might we? How might HMW? How might we? And that's kind of the question you want to bring up when you're in these discussions.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your perspective.